All right, fellow homesteaders slash money savers. If you're living in, well, it's 2025 now, but if you've been alive recently, of course, you know that inflation has been extremely difficult. Every year we kill a few deer, and that really helps us be able to afford meat. And we have been recently keeping the bones. Actually, we've been doing it for about a year now, and it's been really putting a dent on how much money we're saving. Take my knife and I'll cut it up like that. Just make sure you cut it in kind of small chunks. That way you can put it in a pan in the oven. And if you can't do it right away, you can wrap it in the butcher in paper. I take some paper towels like that. That way when you put it in the freezer, it doesn't wet the butcher in paper, and it's hard to get off if that happens. The paper towels gets the blood off, and it's my understanding, I think they call it hemoglobin. It has like a irony taste. So that's another reason it's good to wipe off all that blood. And yeah, just tie it up with some butchering twine. I think that's what that's called. And then we'll just put it right in the freezer. If we don't want to use it right away, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. We take our onions, cut them up into quarters like that, keep the skins on them and everything. Obviously the whole garlic. And then we're gonna put our meat on there, and we're gonna put them in the oven. I think I do about 400 degrees. This is just to kind of pre-roast them. It gets that char on the outside. It's really good. And we have 2 ovens, so we'll put 2 pans in there at a time. Let me fast forward a little bit. Yeah, now about halfway through, probably about 15 minutes, I'll take the meat out and I will lather it with tomato paste. As you can see here, I believe lather is the correct word. And we're gonna put it back in the oven, and we're gonna let that tomato paste that's the part that's really gonna char up, and it's gonna get a really nice flavor when we put it in our roasting pan. And see how it's nice and burnt like that. And I like that. And we put our onions and our garlic. I also put some wood ears in the broth. That's not necessary at all. I know a lot of y'all are probably not foragers, but I forage a lot as well. Make sure everything is somewhat below the water. It's gonna cook down anyway, so if you have little pieces of bone sticking up, it's really no issue. This is the next day. I think this had been going for maybe 12 hours or so. You don't have to cook it all the way. You just want the meat to be able to fall off the bones. But it's gonna be a nice little broth in the roaster oven at that point. I diced up these potatoes. As you can tell, maybe it's 1 inch by 1 inch or so. And I put a good bit of salt on those potatoes. And I'm going to pour up some of the broth from the bones. And I'm just going to cover the potatoes, and then we're going to boil the potatoes until they are, either you're going to do them until the potatoes are completely done. Just take a spoon and just, cut through the potatoes and make sure you like the texture. With this hash, we are going to pressure can it after we're done, and that's going to cook the potatoes a little bit more. So we like to cook the potatoes until they're still a little bit raw, I guess. If you're going to go ahead and eat the hash right away and you're not going to pressure can it, you can cook the potatoes completely. And we're going to drain out our broth into a pot. And I was always taught when you make a broth to get the little bubbles off the top. I believe it's supposed to render a gamey taste if you don't take that off. Maybe you can put in the comments that you leave the bubbles on. I don't know. I always take the bubbles off. Now we're going to take our meat and we're going to put it in this Vitamix, and then I fill it up with, I also fill that up with a broth when I put it in the Vitamix, and it blends it really well. My wife recommended that I use a food processor, so next time I guess I'm going to use the food processor. It should work better. It's a little tough for your Vitamix. And as you can tell, I take it from Vitamix and then I put it into a pot yet again, the meat, and it's shredded up as you can see there. And like I did with the potatoes, I also do with some onions. I dice up some onions and I cook them in the broth. I didn't show it in this video, but that is what I had just added to the pot. And there's my potatoes. And then I add an assortment of, I put a list at the bottom: mustard, Worcestershire sauce, ketchup. What else do I do? My grandma likes to add liquid smoke to it. I didn't do it on this batch, but you can do that. You might have to add a little bit more salt. Just taste it throughout. What else? Let's see. Pepper, hot sauce. I do a little bit of white vinegar and I do a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And as you're doing this, just keep tasting it and just figure out what you want that flavor to be. I also add some turmeric to make it a nice yellow color. It kind of looks like prison slop if you don't add the turmeric to it. If there are other, make sure you check the description and make sure I don't list any other sauces and stuff that I usually add. I think I got everything in there. But yeah, we'll let that sit on the pot for a couple more minutes and just let it meld. Maybe put it on a simmer for like 30 minutes or so. Add the proper amount of broth that you want as far as the liquidiness. You can go and you can, I like to make it, you know, kind of thick, because you can also put this on sandwiches. This was actually really good on a sandwich. You might have to squeeze the broth out a little bit if you don't want your bread to be sloppy. But yeah, just, you can make dry hash or you can make a wetter hash, or just, it's all up to your preference. And you don't really need to see much of this, but we're going to put it into jars and we pressure can it on, let's see, 10 pounds, I believe, for 90 minutes. Again, check the description to make sure I have that right. My wife always supervises me when it comes to pressure canning. But yeah, that's it. Like I said, eat this over rice or some saltine crackers, or you can eat it by itself. It has the potatoes in it, so that's a little bit of a starch for you already. And that's pretty much it. That's like, I mean, how many meals? You get probably 3 or 4 meals out of one jar. If you mix it with some rice, it's like $1 a meal, if that. So it's a good deal. And when you do this, you'll also probably get a couple of cans of broth while you're at it. That's it. Pretty simple. Enjoy, or I hope you enjoy. Until next time.